The night it all changed, didn't feel like much, no flashing lights, no sudden revelations. Just me, in my small apartment, staring at the ceiling like it was a puzzle I couldn't solve. I'd been feeling numb for weeks. Maybe months. It's hard to tell when the days blur into one another, like watercolors bleeding together in the rain. I was 29 and unemployed. My job at the marketing firm had evaporated after the company downsized, and since then, my life had become a series of awkward emails, rejected job applications, and too many episodes of old TV shows. The silence was suffocating. Sometimes I thought the quiet was worse than any noise. That Tuesday night, I sat curled on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly like my childhood. I was halfway through a cup of tea that had gone cold. I didn't want to do anything, not really. Not even breathe. At exactly 2:03 a.m., I whispered, "I don't know how to keep doing this." The words floated out of me and hung there, like a confession to a room that had long stopped listening. Just then, out of nowhere, something caught my eye. Under the coffee table, a piece of paper. It was a letter, no return address. No stamp. Just my name, scrawled in handwriting I recognized instantly, my own. I froze. Slowly, I reached out and picked it up. The paper was old and creased, like it had traveled a long way to get to me. I unfolded it carefully, and read, "You were never meant to disappear quietly. There is a version of your life where you feel like yourself again. You've just forgotten how to find it." At the bottom was a line I could barely make out, written in the shaky script I'd used years ago, "Say yes, and I'll meet you there." I sat with the letter for what felt like hours, staring at those words. It was like a riddle, a promise, and a challenge all wrapped into one. Who was you? Who was I? Was this some cruel joke? A hallucination? Or a message from a part of me I'd forgotten how to listen to? My phone buzzed on the table. I ignored it. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine saying yes. What would happen then? Would the world shift beneath my feet? Would I wake up somewhere new? Or would I finally wake up inside myself? The thought was terrifying. But also strangely hopeful. Underscore 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 underscore. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the cracked blinds and landed on the letter. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I stood up, folded it carefully, and tucked it into my jacket pocket. For the first time in months, I stepped outside. No headphones. No distractions, just me, and the city breathing around me. Underscore 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 underscore. I walked without direction, past sleepy cafes and shuttered shops. The world felt big and strange, like I was a tourist in my own life. Then I saw it, a small bookstore wedged between a bakery and a florist. I hadn't been inside in years. Something pulled me through the door. Underscore 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 underscore. The smell of old paper and leather hit me like a wave. The shopkeeper looked up and smiled, like he'd been waiting. Looking for anything? He asked. I shook my head. Not really. He nodded knowingly. Sometimes, the books find us. I wandered through aisles packed tight with stories, memoirs, and novels that promised other worlds. Then I saw it, a thin book, bound in soft blue fabric, no title. I opened it and found a note inside. "This is your story." I swallowed hard. Was I ready to read it? Chapter 2, The Letter and the Choice. The letter burned a hole in my pocket all day. I tried to ignore it, but every time I reached for my phone or glanced at the clock, the folded paper was there, a quiet reminder that something, somewhere, was waiting. It was strange, really. I hadn't expected a letter to hold so much weight. In a world of texts and emails, something handwritten felt like a secret from another time. When evening came, I sat back on my couch, the same one that had cradled my exhaustion for weeks. I pulled the letter out again and stared at it like it was a riddle I had to solve. Say yes, and I'll meet you there. What did that even mean? Could I say yes? I thought about all the reasons not to. The fear, the uncertainty, the weight of failure I carried like a shadow, but then, I thought about what would happen if I said no, if I turned away, if I stayed exactly where I was, day after day, caught in a loop of quiet desperation. The letter didn't promise a miracle. It promised a chance. A possibility. A door, maybe, that I just had to open. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper and read it once more, and then, slowly, I whispered, yes. The room didn't change. The lights didn't flicker. Nothing exploded, but inside me, something shifted, a warmth bloomed, gentle and steady, like a candle lit in a dark room, and I knew the journey had begun. Chapter 3, The Other Life. When I woke up the next morning, nothing looked familiar. The ceiling above me was the same plain white, but the walls felt softer, painted a pale blue instead of the dull beige I'd gotten used to. The sunlight poured through wide windows, warmer and brighter than I remembered. I blinked, disoriented. I was lying in a bed that wasn't mine. The sheets smelled faintly of lavender, something I couldn't recall ever buying. My phone was on the bedside table. It buzzed softly. I picked it up. There was a single message waiting, "Welcome back, no sender." I sat up slowly, the weight of disbelief settling on my chest. Was this a dream? A trick? Or had the letter meant what it said? The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of city life outside the window. I pulled back the curtains. Below me, the street was alive with people, laughing, talking, living. There was a coffee cart where a barista handed a steaming cup to a smiling customer. Across the street, a bookstore displayed new arrivals I recognized from my old life, but somehow they felt different, more inviting. And then I saw it, a small notebook lying open on the desk beside the bed. I walked over and picked it up. On the first page was written, "This is your story. The one you almost forgot to live." I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Somewhere deep inside, a part of me stirred, a part one hadn't heard in a long time. Maybe, just maybe, this was the version of my life where I felt like myself again. I didn't know how or why I'd come here, or how long I'd stay, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. I smiled, and whispered, "Let's see where this goes." Chapter 4, Lessons from the Other Side. The days that followed felt like stepping through a mist. Everything was familiar, yet not quite the same, like walking into a memory that had been altered just enough to make me notice. I learned quickly that this life was a reflection of choices I'd never made, paths I'd never taken. It was as if the universe had opened a window and invited me to peek inside. In this world, I had a job, a small, meaningful one, working at that bookstore I'd only ever visited as a customer. I spent my mornings arranging shelves, recommending stories to strangers, and listening to the quiet hum of pages turning. It wasn't a glamorous life. It wasn't perfect. But it felt real. More importantly, it felt like me. I started to remember what it meant to want. Not just to survive or drift, but to hope. To imagine. There were mornings when I woke up with a smile, even when the sky was gray, but there were also moments of doubt. Nights when loneliness crept back in. Times when I wondered if this was just another illusion, a dream I'd wake from and find myself back on the couch, clutching a letter that meant nothing. One afternoon, while shelving books, I found a worn copy of The Midnight Library, a story about lives unlived and the power of choice. I traced my finger over the spine, realizing how much that simple idea had changed everything. It wasn't about escaping. It was about learning, about understanding that every choice, every moment, is a chance to grow, and maybe, just maybe, the life I thought I lost was waiting for me. not somewhere else, but here, in the decisions I made every day. That night, I wrote in the notebook that had appeared on my desk, "Thank you for reminding me that I am not lost." I folded the page and put the book away, knowing that tomorrow would bring new lessons. Because this life, my life, was worth fighting for. Chapter 5, Returning Home. Morning came slow and soft, the kind of dawn that feels like a promise instead of a warning. I woke up in the blue-walled bedroom again, the notebook lying open on the desk beside me like an old friend waiting for my thoughts. For days, I'd wandered through this other life, a life shaped by choices I never dared make before. It was simpler, quieter, but no less real, and now the question was clear: did I want to stay here, or did I want to go back? The letter was still tucked in my jacket pocket, the edges worn from being handled so many times. Say yes, and I'll meet you there. What did there even mean? Was it a place? A feeling? Or just another step on the long, winding road I'd been traveling all my life? I stood by the window and looked out at the city below, the coffee cart, the bookstore, the people who didn't know my name but somehow made me feel seen. I thought about my old life, the lonely nights, the job I lost, the dreams I tucked away like faded photographs, and then I thought about what I'd learned here, that I wasn't defined by failure, or fear, or the quiet moments of despair. I was more than those things. I was a collection of choices. Some good, some bad. Some that led me here, and some that could lead me anywhere. With a deep breath, I folded the letter one last time and placed it gently in the notebook. I smiled. Because I realized something important: wherever I was, wherever I went, the journey wasn't about escaping myself. It was about finding my way back. I'm ready now. To live. To choose. To keep moving forward. Chapter 6, The Journey Forward. Weeks passed, but time felt different now, softer, more like a friend than a foe. Back in my old apartment, the letter was gone, but its message stayed. It was tucked into my heart, a quiet pulse reminding me that change isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's a whisper. I started small. A walk in the park, a call to an old friend, a book I'd meant to read for years. I found a new job, nothing grand, but one that gave me purpose and space to grow. Some nights were still hard. Some mornings still foggy. But the difference was that I didn't face them alone anymore. Not really, because I carried a secret strength, the knowledge that there was always a version of me waiting, a better story unfolding one choice at a time. The night it all changed was not some miraculous moment of transformation. It was the start of 1,000 small yes, and every day since, I've said yes to living.